Welcome to our quick guide on exploring the branches of government. Did you know that only 4% of bills introduced in Congress become law? Or that the longest filibuster in history lasted over 24 hours? These are just a few of the surprising facts you'll discover in this series. The US government is a fascinating mix of power and checks and balances. It's designed to ensure no single branch becomes too powerful. But how does this all work? We're here to break it down for you. In this guide, we'll dive into the powerhouse of Congress, where laws are crafted and lives are shaped. We'll uncover the secret powers of the president and the impact of their decisions beyond the Oval Office. You'll also learn about the Supreme Court, the ultimate judicial titan, and how it can shape the nation with a single ruling. Ever wondered about the tug-of-war between state and federal powers? We'll explore some of the most significant conflicts and compromises. Plus, we'll shine a light on the unsung heroes working behind the scenes, making sure everything runs smoothly. Get ready for an engaging journey through the intricate dance of governance. With each chapter, you'll gain a deeper understanding of how our government works and why it matters. Let's dive in. 1. The powerhouse of Congress, crafting laws and shaping lives. Welcome to our first chapter, the powerhouse of Congress, crafting laws and shaping lives. Let's dive into the heart of the legislative branch, where the real magic happens. Did you know that Congress has two houses? The Senate and the House of Representatives. This bicameral system ensures a balance of power. The Senate has 100 members, 2 from each state. The House, on the other hand, has 435 members, with seats distributed based on population. One fascinating fact, the longest filibuster in history lasted 24 hours and 18 minutes. Senator Strom Thurmond spoke against the Civil Rights Act of 1957. Imagine talking for that long. Now, let's talk about how a bill becomes a law. It all starts with an idea. This idea can come from anyone, a citizen, a group, or a legislator. The bill is then introduced in either the House or the Senate. Did you know that only about 4% of introduced bills become law? It's a tough journey. Once a bill is introduced, it goes to a committee. Committees are like the workhorses of Congress. They review, amend, and vote on the bill. If it passes the committee, it goes to the floor for debate. Here's a cool fact, the House of Representatives uses electronic voting, while the Senate votes by voice. Imagine the buzz in the room during a vote. During the debate, members discuss the bill's merits and flaws. They can propose amendments. Sometimes, these debates get heated. Remember, these debates are public. You can watch them on C-SPAN. After the debate, it's time to vote. If the bill passes in one house, it goes to the other. If both houses approve, the bill goes to the president. The president can sign it into law or veto it. However, Congress can override a veto with a 2/3 vote. A historical nugget, President Franklin D. Roosevelt holds the record for the most vetoes at 635. That's a lot of rejected bills. The legislative process is a blend of strategy, negotiation, and sometimes, sheer persistence. It's like a chess game, with each move carefully planned. For instance, members often form coalitions to gain support. They might trade votes or amend the bill to make it more appealing. One of the most strategic moves is the use of riders. These are unrelated amendments added to a bill. Sometimes, riders are used to pass controversial measures that wouldn't stand alone. Lastly, Congress has the power of the purse. This means they control federal spending. Every year, they create a budget that outlines how money will be spent. This is a powerful tool. It allows Congress to influence nearly every aspect of government. 2 presidential powers unleashed, beyond the Oval Office. Welcome to the second chapter, Presidential Powers Unleashed, Beyond the Oval Office. Here, we'll explore the executive branch and the many hats the president wears. The president is often seen as the face of the nation. But there's much more to the role. One of the most significant powers is the ability to issue executive orders. These are directives that have the force of law. For example, Franklin D. Roosevelt issued Executive Order 9066, which led to the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II. Did you know the president also acts as the commander-in-chief of the armed forces? This means they have direct control over the military. They can deploy troops and oversee military operations. However, only Congress can declare war. It's a careful balance of power. Another fascinating role is that of the chief diplomat. The president negotiates treaties with other countries. These treaties need Senate approval. A notable treaty is the Camp David Accords, brokered by President Jimmy Carter, which led to peace between Egypt and Israel. The president also has a say in legislative matters. They can propose bills and work with Congress to get them passed. A famous example is the New Deal, introduced by Franklin D. Roosevelt to combat the Great Depression. One unique fact, presidents deliver the State of the Union address annually. This tradition started with George Washington in 1790. It's an opportunity to outline the administration's priorities and legislative agenda. The president's influence extends to the judiciary as well. They appoint federal judges, including Supreme Court justices. These appointments are for life, making them a lasting legacy of any administration. For instance, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, appointed by Bill Clinton, served for 27 years and became a cultural icon. Here's a strategic aspect: presidents often use signing statements when approving bills. These statements can outline how they interpret the law and intend to implement it. It's a subtle way of shaping policy. Another interesting power is the ability to grant pardons. This allows the president to forgive crimes, effectively erasing legal consequences. Gerald Ford famously pardoned Richard Nixon after the Watergate scandal. The president also oversees the executive branch, which includes various departments and agencies. These bodies implement federal laws and policies. For example, the Department of Health and Human Services manages programs like Medicare and Medicaid. A strategic move often used is the bully pulpit. This term, coined by Theodore Roosevelt, refers to the president's ability to influence public opinion and garner support for policies. By speaking directly to the people, presidents can put pressure on Congress to act. In times of crisis, the president's leadership is crucial. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, John F. Kennedy's decisive actions helped avert a nuclear war. His ability to navigate intense negotiations with the Soviet Union showcased the importance of presidential decision-making. 3 Judicial Titans, the Supreme Court's secret weapon. Welcome to our third chapter, Judicial Titans, the Supreme Court's secret weapon. In this chapter, we explore the judicial branch, focusing on the Supreme Court's crucial role in shaping American life. The Supreme Court is the highest court in the land. It consists of 9 justices who serve lifetime appointments. This structure ensures stability and independence from political pressure. Did you know that only about 1% of cases appealed to the Supreme Court are heard each year? This makes each case significant. One of the most impactful powers of the Supreme Court is judicial review. This allows the court to declare laws or executive actions unconstitutional. The landmark case Marbury v. Madison, 1803, established this principle. It's a cornerstone of the court's authority. The justices often use strategic timing in their decisions. For example, the Brown v. Board of Education ruling, which ended racial segregation in public schools, was carefully timed during a period of growing civil rights activism. This timing helped ensure greater acceptance and implementation. A fascinating fact: the Supreme Court's decisions are final. There's no higher authority to appeal to. This gives the court immense power in shaping national policy and societal norms. Another key strategy is the court's use of narrow rulings. By deciding cases on specific issues rather than broad principles, the justices can avoid sweeping changes and maintain stability. This approach was evident in the case of Masterpiece Cake Shop versus Colorado Civil Rights Commission, where the ruling focused on the specific actions of the state commission rather than broader issues of religious freedom and anti-discrimination laws. Here's an interesting tidbit: Supreme Court justices often write concurring and dissenting opinions. These opinions, while not legally binding, can influence future legal thinking and provide insight into the justice's reasoning. For instance, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's dissent in Ledbetter v. Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company inspired the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act of 2009. The court also uses the Rule of 4. This means that if 4 justices agree to hear a case, it's placed on the docket. This rule ensures that a minority of the justices can still bring important issues to the court's attention. In terms of influence, the Supreme Court's rulings can have widespread effects. The decision in Obergefell v. Hodges, which legalized same-sex marriage nationwide, is a prime example. This ruling not only changed the legal landscape but also reflected and accelerated shifts in public opinion. Did you know that the justices meet in private to discuss and vote on cases? These conferences are highly secretive, fostering candid discussion and debate. The Chief Justice, currently John Roberts, plays a crucial role in guiding these discussions and assigning the writing of opinions. 4 State versus Federal, the ultimate power struggle. Welcome to our 4th chapter, State versus Federal, the ultimate power struggle. Here, we'll examine the ongoing tension between state and federal governments. The U.S. Constitution outlines a federal system of government. This means power is divided between national and state governments. But who has the final say? This question has sparked debate and conflict since the nation's founding. One of the key points of tension is the 10th Amendment. It states that any powers not given to the federal government are reserved for the states. This principle is often at the heart of disputes over state versus federal authority. A fascinating historical conflict was the nullification crisis of 1832. South Carolina attempted to nullify federal tariffs, leading to a standoff with the federal government. President Andrew Jackson asserted federal supremacy, but the crisis highlighted the delicate balance of power. Another area of conflict is the regulation of commerce. The Commerce Clause gives Congress the power to regulate trade between states. However, what constitutes interstate commerce has been a subject of debate. For example, the Supreme Court case Gonzalez v. Reich ruled that federal law could override state laws permitting medical marijuana, based on interstate commerce principles. Education is another battleground. The federal government provides funding and sets standards, but states control school systems. The No Child Left Behind Act of 2001 increased federal oversight, leading to pushback from states seeking more control over education policies. Healthcare also showcases this power struggle. The Affordable Care Act, ACA, expanded federal influence over health insurance. However, states were given the option to expand Medicaid under the ACA, leading to varied implementations across the country. One interesting fact: states are often called the laboratories of democracy. This phrase, coined by Justice Louis Brandeis, refers to the idea that states can experiment with policies before they are adopted at the federal level. Successful state policies can become models for national legislation. The conflict between state and federal powers extends to environmental regulation as well. The Clean Air Act gives the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, authority to set national standards, but states can implement more stringent regulations. California, for instance, has often set higher standards for vehicle emissions. A key strategy states use is litigation. When states disagree with federal policies, they can sue the federal government. This was seen in the numerous lawsuits filed by states challenging the ACA. Courts become arbiters in these disputes, deciding the balance of power. 5 Checks and Balances, the intricate dance of governance. Welcome to our 5th chapter, Checks and Balances, the intricate dance of governance. This chapter explores the system designed to prevent any one branch of government from becoming too powerful. The concept of checks and balances is rooted in the U.S. Constitution. Each branch of government, legislative, executive, and judicial, has distinct powers that enable it to check the others. This system ensures no single branch dominates. One fascinating aspect of checks and balances is the presidential veto. The president can reject a bill passed by Congress. However, Congress can override a veto with a 2/3 vote in both houses. Did you know that only 7.1% of vetoes have been overridden in U.S. history? This shows the challenge of achieving such consensus. The Senate has a unique role in checking presidential power through its advice and consent function. For instance, the Senate confirms judicial appointments and ratifies treaties. A notable example is the rejection of the Treaty of Versailles in 1919, which shaped U.S. foreign policy for years. Judicial review is another critical component. The Supreme Court can declare laws or executive actions unconstitutional. This power was established in Marbury v. Madison, 1803. Chief Justice John Marshall famously wrote, "It is emphatically the province and duty of the judicial department to say what the law is." Strategically, the branches often engage in negotiation and compromise. For example, during budget negotiations, the President and Congress must agree on spending levels. These negotiations can be contentious, sometimes leading to government shutdowns. One interesting fact: the executive branch can issue executive orders to bypass Congress. However, the judiciary can strike down these orders if they exceed presidential authority. President Truman's order to seize steel mills during the Korean War was invalidated by the Supreme Court in Youngstown Sheet and Tube Company v. Sawyer, 1952. Congress also holds the power of the purse, controlling federal spending. This power is a significant check on executive action. During the Nixon administration, Congress passed the War Powers Resolution to limit presidential military authority without congressional approval. Impeachment is a powerful tool for Congress to check the executive and judicial branches. The House can impeach, and the Senate can convict and remove officials from office. Presidents Andrew Johnson, Bill Clinton, and Donald Trump were impeached, but none were removed from office.